When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject, Brother Pascal. User, CB1579er. Posted, June 27, 1996.
You ever hear of Brother Pascal? I don't mean on TV or at some tent revival. I'm talking about a voice that used to crawl out of the radio static late at night, out near the border where the towns die young and the land stays cracked and mean. Not many people remember him anymore. Hell, most folks didn't even believe he was real when he was on the air. But back in the summer of '85, he was all anyone like me could talk about, quietly, under our breath, like if we said his name too loud, the sky might split. I was 19 that year, working graveyard shifts at the Westlake Texaco just outside Eagle Pass. Not much to do out there past midnight except stare at the bugs frying on the neon or flick through the static on the radio. That's how I found him. One night, just after 3 a.m, I rolled the tuner past a dead zone and there he was, voice like rusted nails, dragging through a prayer. Said his name was Brother Pascal, said he was dying, said God lived inside his CB radio and was speaking through the wires. I thought it was a prank. People did that kind of thing back then. Pirate signals, prank calls, all part of the weird little world we built in the dark. But then he started talking about things he shouldn't have known. He'd say a name, describe a scar, mention a small-town gas station with a clerk in a red hat listening too hard. The first time he said mine, I dropped the radio. I told myself it was a coincidence, just static and suggestion. But the next night, I tuned back in anyway. People started calling in. Not that he ever asked for them, somehow they just connected. There'd be this soft crackle and then a new voice, always shaky, always confessing something that never said out loud. A teenage girl whispering about a buried baby behind her uncle's barn. A man who stole morphine from the hospice and used it to numb his mother until she stopped breathing. A woman who claimed her husband wouldn't stay dead, and so she drowned him again and again in the bathtub. And Brother Pascal, he never judged. Just murmured something low, like a lullaby twisted in reverse, and told them to lay their hands on the speaker and let God work. That's when the screaming would start. Or the laughter, or worse, silence. It spread fast. Folks on the edge of things, the lonely and the sick and the searching, they all found him eventually. I met a man at the station one night with a busted eye socket and dried blood down his collar. He said Pascal told him to place his hand on the hood of his truck and pray. He did, and the pain stopped. His wife, who'd been missing 3 days, called him 5 minutes later. Then he walked out without buying a damn thing. They called them miracles, but it didn't take long to realize something was wrong. A bait shop owner near Lake Amistad started wearing a crown of coat hangers. Said Pascal told him he had to bleed so others wouldn't. A woman in Brackettville walked into Mass and poured gasoline on herself. She lit a match and smiled, said the fire would show the truth. The flames never touched her, but the priest behind her dropped dead on the spot, eyes bleeding like tears. At some point, the broadcast stopped being sermons and turned into something else. Not preaching, not even prophecy, just static and whispers and a song that came through every few nights like a jingle sent from hell itself. I don't care if it rains or freezes, long as I got my plastic Jesus riding on the dashboard of my car. I tried to stop listening, I really did, but it felt like it left a hook inside me, something sharp, tugging at the back of my brain. Even when the radio was off, I'd hear snippets of him under the sound of the cooler or behind the hum of the soda machine. Then, one night in late August, the frequency went quiet. A week passed, then 2. Some folks thought he was dead. Others said God had taken him up like Elijah. And then in September of '85, the broadcast came back. But it was different. There was no more talking, just the sound of a congregation marching, slow and steady, somewhere far off, footsteps, the occasional sob, and that damn song about the plastic Jesus looping under it all like a curse. I turned it off. For good, I thought. I left the Texaco the next spring, moved north, and tried to forget. But in '92, I saw something on the news that punched the breath right out of me. A handheld camcorder caught it. A procession of people walking barefoot down Highway 277. Men, women, and even kids. They all carried wooden boards with little plastic dashboard Jesuses nailed to them like crucifixes. In the middle was an RV, old and sun-faded, crawling along behind them. On its roof was a rusted office chair bolted down with duct tape and rebar. Sitting in it was a man, skeletal, mouth open, eyes too wide. He was hooked up to a satellite dish aimed skyward. His lips moved, but there was no sound. They said later the man was unidentified, said the RV was empty when authorities arrived, but they lied. I know because I talked to someone who was there. Inside, they found a body, mummified, melted into the driver's seat, wearing a sheriff's badge. But no, it was not Pascal. Whoever or whatever was riding that signal is still out there. Every once in a while, I'll hear from someone who finds a burst of that old broadcast, a bit of singing, a flash of static, the click of a line connecting. They always say the same thing. He said my name, Well, I know better than to tell them not to listen because by then, it's too late. A few months ago, my old manager, Jerry, died in his truck behind that same Texaco. I read it in the local paper. They found him slumped over the wheel with the radio tuned to 88.9. Witnesses said they heard a song playing through the static. Plastic Jesus riding on the dashboard of my car. If you ever hear it, just turn the dial. Don't call. Don't talk back. And if you got one of those little dashboard figurines, throw it out the window right now. Don't donate it. Don't sell it. Maybe even burn it. Because Brother Pascal may have died years ago, but whatever he tuned into is still riding the airwaves. And these days, it's not looking for believers. It's looking for hosts.
Subject, Good Old Jack. User, X1YZ0049. Posted, August 29, 1998.
I buried my boy on a Thursday. It was too bright for a funeral. The sun was high and hot, pressing down on the backs of everyone's necks like God forgot what kind of day it was supposed to be. His daughters, my grandbabies, stood to the side, clinging to their mama like she might disappear too. I watched them, hand in hand, their eyes rimmed red and hollowed out, and I thought, they're too damn young for this. I sat off to the side under an old oak tree with Jack. We didn't talk at first, we just watched. The preacher kept going on about peace and God's plan, but it all sounded like gravel in a tin can. You ever notice how the ones doing the most talking at funerals are the ones hurting the least? Jack said, flicking ash off the side of a cigarette. I didn't answer. Just nodded. He handed me one from the pack. I didn't smoke anymore, but I took it anyway. My hands needed something to do. They say time heals all things, Jack muttered. But they never say what you're supposed to do while it's passing. The girls were standing so still. My daughter-in-law kept whispering in their ears, something soft I couldn't hear, but whatever it wasn't enough. Because no words really are, not for something like this. I watched as they lowered my son into the ground. It's not a thing a man ever pictures, not until it happens. You hold your baby for the first time and swear to protect him from everything. You teach him to drive, to shave, to throw a punch if he needs to. You never think you'll be the one putting him in the dirt. He was a good man, I finally said out loud. Better than you were at that age, Jack replied with a grin. I smiled too, couldn't help it. Jack always had a way of sneaking in the truth without making it sting too hard. Hell, better than I ever became, I muttered. He figured it out, family, faith, all that. He made it work. He did all right, Jack said. After the service, everyone drove back to the house. One of my nephews brought fried chicken from Popeyes. My cousin Eileen made her green bean casserole that no one really likes, but everyone eats because they think it's tradition. The house filled with that strange noise people make when they're trying not to talk about the dead. Clinking forks, soft laughs, the occasional fake cough. I stepped out onto the porch after a while, back to my old spot on the swing. Jack followed with 2 beers, cold ones, the good kind. You ever wonder why we do it like this? I asked. All the food and the stories and the folding chairs, like any of it means something. Jack cracked his beer open. It doesn't. It just keeps people from falling apart too quick. The swing creaked as we rocked back and forth. There was a breeze coming in, soft like it didn't want to disturb anything. I keep thinking about that voicemail, I said. He left me one the night before, just said he'd call me tomorrow. Wanted to ask about patching the back fence. That was it. That was the last thing he ever said to me. The damn fence. Jack didn't say anything for a while. Just let the moment settle. Then he looked out toward the driveway and said, "Sometimes we don't get to choose the last thing we say, but the good stuff's and all the ones that came before." That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't cry during the service, didn't cry at the gravesite, but right then, with the porch groaning beneath us and the sun fading out slow across the trees, I let go. Jack didn't try to stop it, just passed me a napkin from his back pocket and leaned back like we were talking about baseball scores instead of the worst pain a man can carry. "You know," I said, sniffling into the napkin, "Mom and Dad used to say you were just something I made up. Called you my imaginary friend like I'd grow out of it." Jack chuckled. "You didn't." "No," I said, shaking my head. "I never did." We sat in the quiet again, just listening. Inside, people had started to leave. I heard a screen door slam. "Do you think he's somewhere?" I asked. "You know, after all this." "I think so," Jack said. "And I think when it's time, you'll see him again." The swing rocked once more, soft and slow. It was getting late. The sky was turning that deep purple, almost black, the kind of color you only get after something ends. Jack stood up and stretched. "I'll be around," he said. "Where else would you be?" I smiled. And just like that, he walked off the porch and into the trees. I stayed there on the swing long after he disappeared from sight, the slats beneath me creaking with every slow sway. My beer had gone warm in my hand, but I didn't care. The sky had that deep twilight hue now, like bruised skin fading into black, and the cicadas had started up their chorus. I thought about Jack, about how he'd always just shown up when I needed him, no matter the year, no matter how old I was or what kind of hell I was walking through. I used to think maybe I was broken for keeping him around so long. My parents sure thought so. "It's just a phase," they said. "Imaginary friends are for kids." They were half right. It was a phase, a long one, 50 years and counting. And yeah, I guess Jack might have been imaginary in the sense that he wasn't like the rest of us, but damned if he didn't show up more than most people ever did. You learn after a while that growing up doesn't mean letting go of the things that make you feel less alone. Sometimes it just means learning how to hold them quieter. I used to be ashamed of him. Now I just feel lucky. Not everybody gets someone like Jack.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.